Welcome to day 2 of the Incandescent Joy Challenge. So, yesterday we focused on noticing without, which is using our body and the gift of our five senses to notice the things in our environment, even when we are in difficult times or stressful times, to notice small, tiny things in our environment which can bring us an experience of joy. And I gave the example of a hot mug of tea or coffee, which is very beautifully decorated or carved. I gave an example of sunlight filtering in through the windows. And I really, really hope that you found the time to at least do the prompt and have an experience in the last 24 hours of noticing these tiny, tiny moments of joy which are so much a part of our ordinary life that they go unnoticed. But here's the thing, joy is a two-way street. There is the stimulus, which is what you notice outside, or the experience like birds chirping or your child talking, or like in my case, I gave you this example of doing an art summit and being moved and grateful for the generosity of the artists, as well as the joy in learning the techniques and kind of trying and applying it in my own sketchbook practice. So that was an experience. It wasn't momentary like a cup of tea or a glimmer or the sound of birds chirping or crickets chirping or children playing in the park, right? It was a whole experience. So whether it is a tiny moment or it's a whole experience, the external aspect of it, what we noticed without on day one, is the stimulus. But there is always a response, an internal response. And I referenced this as well yesterday, as you may have noticed, when I described the time that I realized what joy feels like for the first time. So I told you how I was standing one ordinary afternoon facing my purple sofa in my living room, and I felt my heart was full, prickling in my nose. I felt tears in my eyes. This was my internal response. So, mindfulness teaches us that every single emotion, okay, it expresses itself through the sensations in our body. Let me repeat that. Every single emotion that we experience, it's not just a I feel thought in our head, like I feel anxious, I feel worried, I feel that's the name of the emotion. But the experience of the emotion happens in our body and it happens through sensations. Just the way an emptiness or a growling in your tummy is a sensation that tells you that you're hungry, just as feeling dry and parched in your throat or gulping movements in your throat will tell you that you are thirsty, right? So, in the same way, just as these internal body sensations tell us about our physical needs, internal body sensations like a fullness in your chest, moistness in your eyes, it can signal emotions like joy, like gratitude, like thankfulness, and which emotion it is for a given set of internal experiences depends very much on the context of what is happening. So there are two things. There is the context, which is the stimulus that we already spoke about, the light filtering in through the window, the warm cup of steaming tea with its fragrant aroma and in a ceramic, beautifully carved cup, right? So there's that experience or the stimulus, which is the context. And then there is the internal experience, right? Now, once again, we are very different individuals, right? How I experience joy is going to look at different from how you experience joy, or rather, I should say, how I recognize this internal experience as joy versus gratitude versus happiness versus contentment versus bliss is going to be different for you than you. You're going to have a different set of internal experiences. You may have more of fullness in your chest. You may feel tingling in your hands. Your experience is going to be different because you are a different person. You've had different experiences to draw from. Uh, you've had a different background, a different personality, right? All of us are unique that way. And also, and here's the crux, in different situations, this is going to look different, right? So, my joy signature might be different when it's light filtering in through the window versus when it's my child telling me something really sweet and hugging me at the end of the day, right? Maybe the intensity is more in the second case because it is interpersonal, because she's my child, because I have so much love and compassion and care already for her, because I'm primed to be biased towards her, because there's already a good feeling in that relationship. So it might be a different internal experience. It might be more intense, or it might be a completely different set of sensations which are there. And so, once again, I'd like to offer some different forms. Since I brought up this example, when I spoke about that ordinary afternoon 5 years ago, I told you that I had this feeling of fullness in my chest. But sometimes when I'm with my child and experiencing joy, that fullness is way more intense. It feels like my heart is expanded and like it is pushing against the ribs which are confining it, like it's pushing against my chest and my rib cage, to the point where it almost feels a little painful. It feels like my heart just wants to break open from the confines of my chest. And I know this sounds dramatic, but really there is no other way to experience it. And it feels sometimes, especially when I'm with my child and she's done something sweet, like there's this intense warmth that is flowing out of my heart, like almost like there is this liquid love which is gushing out, okay, and which just wants to flood the world. And again, this sounds dramatic, but it isn't all that dramatic, really, because eventually that warm, liquidy feeling, it can't gush out of my heart and my chest. So it comes upwards and it makes me prickle in the nose and it kind of leaks out with, teariness in my eyes. So you see, even though the concept is metaphorical, the actual manifestations of it are physical. There is liquid, there is moisture involved, right? There are tears that want to escape, just as I feel like there's this liquid that wants to flow out of my heart and flood the world. So the intensity may be different, the sensations themselves may be slightly different, but I think what happens is that it behooves all of us to pay a little attention, not just to the outward things that give you joy, but also to this internal experience. Because one is, of course, that it makes you more attentive towards yourself, and that is always a good thing in a world which has not taught us to take care of ourselves or to truly pay attention to ourselves. But also because when you start paying attention to that internal signature, it develops a positive feedback loop. Okay, these are good feelings. All right. So as human beings, as animals, we have a tendency and propensity to lean back from what's bad or hurtful or painful and to lean towards what's good. Now, the backward impulse is stronger because it is linked with survival. So, it's common sense, right? If you touch something hot, your hand, even before you realize or recognize it's hot, you're going to pull your hand away. It's automatic, it's reflexive because I was painful. Now, the same thing, something similar happens in emotions, right? If you've had a negative experience, especially as a very small child, with, say, asking for something, and you have a parent or a caregiver who was really rude or sarcastic or said no or shut you down or they were mean to you or they punished you for asking, the next time you ask, a one-off incident may not matter, but if it's a little bit persistent or if it happens at a very impressionable time or stage in your life, it's going to influence your ability to ask for things later in life, right? Because the echo of that will always be there, like asking and being rejected is painful, so no, I don't want to do this. And you may create situations where you either don't have to ask for things at all, or you ask for them very differently, expecting the other person to say no. Again, we're all different. This is not a formula, they're just examples that I'm offering. So, when we notice the good feelings, that warmth, that glow in our chest, when we notice that fullness in our heart, when we notice that prickling in our nose, which is with even that painful expansion feeling in my chest, it's not a bad pain. It's a pain that comes from joy, right? There's so much love inside me. There's so much joy inside me. When you put your conscious attention on that experience, you train yourself to notice that experience more. And you train yourself to notice the things that will give you that experience. So it becomes a positive feedback loop, right? On the one hand, on day one, we've learned to start paying attention and noticing the things that make us feel good. And then we start noticing the specific ways in which they make us feel good. And so they kind of feed into each other, into like this positive loop of goodness. And so tomorrow, we are really going to talk a lot more about attention and our reticular activating system. We're going to talk about how to make this noticing a habit, or rather, the neuroscience behind making this noticing a habit. So, tomorrow is going to be a bit of a nerdy day, but not like in a boring way, in like a really interesting way. I want to share some really, really interesting neuroscience based concepts with you all. And also, more practical ways in which how we can, how and why we can lock in the goodness. Okay, this feedback loop of I notice something good, it makes me feel good. I feel good, I notice things which are good. But today, I really want to talk about this internal body experience. So, as I already said, I'm going to take a minute or two. Again, I've said this a zillion times, but it bears repeating, especially if this is the first time you're listening to something that I am saying. Emotions are not good or bad, okay? Emotions are messengers. They are telling us something that we need to hear. Every emotion, whether it is happiness, sadness, anger, frustration, rage, joy, shame, pain, hurt, disappointment, it's telling us something about ourselves. Now, emotions don't occur in isolation, they occur in context of a given situation that we are experiencing. And the thing about emotion is that they bring a message and they bring us energy. So on day one, I spoke about how joy is the fuel for living a purposeful and meaningful life, right? A lot of all of us have something in life that we are aspiring towards or working towards, something that is important to us, whether it's our parenting or profession, activism, hobbies, whatever it might be, right? And sometimes as a human being, it's very difficult to keep sustaining, especially things like parenting, or if you're a person who cares deeply about sustainability or the climate. It's very hard to keep up your efforts and to keep up your morale even more than your efforts when there's not immediate gratification or immediate results, right? It's not like doing uh, a sum, arithmetic sum, and coming to the answer and having that satisfaction, or even for that matter, cooking a meal and in like 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours, you have whatever dish you prepared and you know it's good, and other people have eaten it and given you feedback. Some projects like parenting, like activism of many kinds, they are long term projects. We don't get the result immediately, and that we don't have that immediate positive feedback loop to keep us going. But when we hook it to something like joy, we can use the energy that joy brings. Just like every other emotion, joy brings with it energy, and that energy can be utilized with us to keep us going and fueling that project or purpose or passion that we have. And the way we do it is the same way that I just spoke about, right? When we pay attention to that internal body sensation, we become aware of how much energy there is in it. And I do find that with a lot of things that I want to do that feel overwhelming, the day-to-day chores or parenting, say, it is easier for me to think of the love that I have for my daughter, the joy that I have in her presence, and then use that as fuel to do the more mundane chores that I, as a neurodivergent person, really don't like. Chores like, well, keeping things in place, or filling up forms that I need to for a school, or any number of mundane chores that come with any normal human existence. It's easier for me to do it when I am tapped into the joy of loving her and the joy of experiencing motherhood with this child. So, the only reason I can be aware of that energy that the joy gives me is because I pay attention to those internal body sensations that I experience in company with her or in her presence. And this is not to say that we always have a joyful time, right? I am a mother. There are times when I have to correct my child or discipline her or not give in to her when she has big emotions, or when she is going through something and I don't have a full emotional cup at that time to deal with whatever she's going through. So all of those things happen, okay? They're part of the normal human existence. I'm not setting myself above normal people, but I know that for my particular temperament, I have made things easier almost by mistake, almost by chance, by discovering this ability of emotions, especially positive emotions like joy and gratitude, to fuel me by paying greater and greater attention to them, and by noticing the situations and things outside me that give me that feeling of gratitude or joy. And so, how do we become aware of these internal body sensations? Because I spoke briefly about how society in this world always wants us to not pay attention to ourselves. And this starts as early as school, okay? So when you went to school, you likely had to ask permission, right, before you went to use the washroom. What happens if you're a shy or introverted child? Or what happens if your friends tease you for wanting to go and use the washroom? And it happens to all of us, right? Slowly people will start, as you grow older and older, you start overriding that need. Or if you're a conscientious student like I was, you don't want to miss what the teacher is saying, so you don't want to go up to the washroom, and you think, oh, I'll just hold on till break, or I'll just hold on till in between the classes. And so we get used to pushing our needs. Something as small as needing to use the washroom, to pee, we push our needs. But what about if you wanted to drink a glass of water? What about if you wanted to eat, you were really hungry, right? You would have to wait till break time, or you would have to raise your hand and drink your glass of water. So then as we grow older, the harder we work, the longer we work, we're always in awe. I'm a surgeon, so in India, when we do residency, we sometimes go more than 24 hours without sleep. And one way we prop ourselves up is by making a big deal out of our endurance. I was able to stand for 8 hours of surgery without a break. I was able to go do a 36-hour shift without sleep, right? And so to a certain extent, we do it to ourselves to kind of, because we are in that situation that we can't get off, to kind of bolster ourselves. But I know that there are a lot of people outside who would be like, oh my God, you're amazing. You can work 36 hours without sleeping. Frankly, no human being should have to do that, okay? But as a society, we are in awe of these endurance feats. And sure, there are situations in which we have to endure it. As a doctor, you have to. If you're in a surgery, and you may have to go 8 hours without meeting your needs. But when it continuously becomes a habit, and one which is praised by society, we put those emotions and the sensations of our body, which tell us about not only our emotions but also our physical needs, we put them on the back burner. And so that's how we put ourselves last on our list. But we also put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get things done. So there's a mismatch in expectations, as you can see. And the way to bridge that expectation is to become more emotionally aware. And so bringing it back to joy, learning to pay attention to what does the sensation of joy, what does the experience of joy feel like inside your body? Where in your body are the most prominent sensations? What is the nature of that sensation? What is the texture? What is the color? Is there a temperature? Is there a movement? Is there an image? Is there a metaphor? But don't go to image and metaphor directly. Try and make it as concrete as possible. And then you are going to end up going into this realm of images and metaphors, because um, it's very hard to confine emotions to just neutral, non judgmental words like the labeling exercise we spoke about yesterday. But always start there, because we want it to be concrete and rooted. And then we want it to have the whole burst of flavor of the emotion. And the way to get better and better at doing this is by doing the mindfulness practice called the body scan practice. And in the body scan practice, again, I have several on my YouTube channel. So I will put up a couple, maybe one or two here, and I'll put some links in the comments. So, or in the description of this video, I will put the links. But I would love if it is possible for you. And I know I have a 5-minute body scan practice. So if it is possible, prime yourself to pay attention to your internal body sensations by doing at least a 5-minute body scan practice. And then bring up a recent experience of joy. So if you did the prompt of day 1, and if you did the noticing, go back to that in memory. And now don't just pay attention to what you saw outside. What was the texture of the curtain, the way the light filtered in, the heft of the cup, the warmth of the liquid, the sip of the tea. Not just that, but what was the internal experience for you? So pull that up in memory in like as vivid detail as you possibly can. And then focus on, what does it feel like? Do you feel something in your throat, in your chest, in your belly? Do you feel something in your shoulders? Do your shoulders suddenly relax? Do you feel something in your face, in your eyes? Do you feel the expression on your face change? Do you feel your face light up? So where is the sensation most prominently located? What is the sensation itself? What is the nature of it? What is the texture, temperature, color? Is it moving in any way? Is there an image or metaphor? What are the secondary areas? So my primary area was my heart and chest, right? The secondary area was the nose and the eyes, feeling the prickling in my nose and the moisture in my eyes. I was saying your facial expressions. Very often, if you pay attention, you can feel the expression on your face changing. You can feel yourself smiling. You can feel like your eyes crinkling up. Uh, I know it happens to me, and that is again something we will talk about on day 4, that feeling of being lit up. If you pay attention, you can feel your face light up, and it may not happen with every experience of joy, but especially if it is interpersonal, like it is with when I meet my daughter after really long, and then we smile and we see each other and we run and we hug each other. I can feel it on my face. So, the more we start paying attention to this, the more we're going to pay attention to things that make us feel good. We're going to orient ourselves greater and greater to joy, and that joy is going to make us feel good. So, we're kind of building this foundation of unshakable joy inside us. And we are also going to become aware of our own internal sensations, which is always a good thing. Like I said, it helps us to pay attention to ourselves. It tells us where we need attention, it tells us where we need care. And then it's also going to make us aware of this energy that comes with joy, which we can then use in the activities that mean the most to us. So I hope this helped. This is called Noticing Without. It's the day 2 prompt. And I will put a quick recap in the description. I hope to hear from you about whether this concept made sense, whether you had any ahas. If you have any questions and want me to elaborate further, let me know in the comments. If you do the prompt or you do the mindfulness body scan practice, I would love to know how your experience goes. And you can either tell me in the comments, or I will be putting a link to a feedback form which you can give me feedback privately or anonymously. And if this has been helpful to you, I would love it if you could like or subscribe to this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot with engagement, and I would love for more people to hear about this approach to joy. So thank you very much for being with me, and I will see you tomorrow for the 3rd video, which is called Locking in the Good. See you. Bye.